How do you respond when things don't work out as planned? If certain things don't go well in your day and certain things do go well, do you look at the things that didn't go well and consider your day to be a complete disaster? Or let's just say you've gone for an interview and you don't get the job. Was that a complete failure? So in other words, do you consider things that happen in your life as either successes or as failures? Binary thinking is things where you look at things as an all or nothing, where it's either a success or a failure. There can be nothing in between. And you can understand how that is actually a distortion because it causes a lot of stress in your life when you start to do things and you experiment with things and you realize that actually it didn't work out, and therefore that experience was a complete failure. And if you have a growth mindset and you start to think about things where you're learning through the experience. So say for example, you go for an interview and let's just say you don't get the job, but you start to consider when you look back at that experience and you say to yourself, actually, I learned about myself. I learned how to handle objections that came my way. I actually learned how to prepare for that particular interview. And you start to look at these things and you say, all right, well, it wasn't a complete write-off. It wasn't a complete failure. Yes, I may not have got that job, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to get the next job. It's really the lessons that you learned that help you to eventually get the job at some point. The next reason why binary thinking actually doesn't work is because you start to overgeneralize. When you start to say, all right, well, that didn't work for me then, and therefore it's never ever going to work for me. And you start to relate those things to future situations that actually haven't occurred yet. Okay, so let's talk about 3 particular steps that can help you to get out of this cognitive distortion, this binary thinking, to help to get you unstuck in your life. The first one is to look at all of the extremes that you have in your life, all of the things where you start to view through this lens of it has to be this way or it's just not going to work, or it has to be this way or it's a complete failure. For example, if you're working on a particular project and you say to yourself, all right, I want this project to be completed perfectly. It has to be completely pristine, precise, without any flaws whatsoever. And if that doesn't happen, then it's going to be a complete failure. The next step is that you want to find a middle ground. So you say to yourself, all right, well, I want this to be perfect, but what is the middle ground that can help me to be okay with this particular project being submitted? What you say to yourself is, all right, it's not perfect, but being able to complete it up to a certain level and being able to get it in on the deadline is going to be acceptable for me, because ultimately what I want to do is I want to be able to submit the project by a specific date. And if it isn't perfect, I'm okay with that as long as I'm still able to submit it. In addition, you're saying to yourself, right, well, the act of completing that project is still an accomplishment in itself, and I want to give myself credit for that particular instance. The third step is to evaluate the effort and the value. You want to consider the effort that it takes to achieve this extreme outcome and the value of the middle ground outcome. And this helps us to realize that moderate success or success in a way that's not perfect is still okay because you've been able to make progress on that particular outcome or on that particular project. And ultimately, you want to be able to view these things as on a continuum, because that's not the last project that you're going to be submitting. There'll be another project that comes up in the next couple of weeks or in the next couple of months. And when that happens, you'll do better next time. Because if you start to think about things on a longer time horizon, you start to realize actually what I'm doing is I'm getting progressively better. I'm getting better on an ongoing basis. And that ultimately is the most important thing, instead of ensuring that everything needs to be absolutely pristine and everything has to be absolutely perfect. Because what you're doing is you're placing unrealistic expectations and pressure on yourself that's going to lead you, 1, to overwhelm, and 2, potentially even to burnout. So when you start to view these things with that complete different lens, it really helps you to become a better person and also helps you to become more healthy in how you start to view these things. And really, when you start to look at these things on a continuum rather than black or white, life starts to become a lot more manageable, because you realize that actually what I'm doing is I'm getting better on an ongoing basis. I'm progressively improving in all of these areas. And ultimately, that is the most important thing, because this isn't a race. We are not in a race here. We are trying to get better over time. And if we can start to look at it in that way, it really is going to help you an enormous amount, as it did help me. And really, when I start to look at these things in this way, it helps me to manage my emotions, it helps me to manage my output, and it helps me to be a lot more grounded in the moment because I start to look at these things with a completely different lens. I hope this video has been valuable for you, slightly different from my usual videos, but ultimately I wanted to share this particular lens and how I've been able to get unstuck by viewing things in a different way. So if it has been valuable to you, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone else that you think could benefit from it. And I'll see you in the next video.